to swallow a human, its throat's just not big enough. Of course, immediately little Caroline raised her hands, and she says, yes, Caroline. He said, well, teacher, you know, Jonah was swallowed by a whale. And the teacher looked at her, and she was a little bit, you know, disturbed, and said, look, I just told you, it's physically impossible for a whale to swallow a human. Its throat's not big enough to do that. And little Caroline looked at her, so I tell you what, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask Jonah. And the teacher looked at her and said, well, what if he's in hell? She said, well, then you can ask him.
Whoa!
Kids are sharp, you know. One of my favorites, though, is about little Daniel, little grandson and granddaddy. Granddaddy's got a farm, and it's late in the afternoon. It's about this time of the year. And, you know, they're walking down the little dirt road to the fish pond, and as they're walking along, they're holding hands, and they're enjoying the scenery. It's just beautiful. The leaves are starting to turn. The sun's setting, and it's just a beautiful afternoon. And they're holding hands, walking along, and all of a sudden, the granddaddy looks down, and he sees a frog on the side of the road, and he reaches down, and he picks up the frog, and the frog looks at him, he looks at the frog, and the frog said, kiss me, and I'll turn into a beautiful princess. And Granddaddy kind of looked at it for a second, took it, stuck it in his pocket, he kept walking. They took a few steps, little grandson jerking on his hand. Granddaddy, didn't you hear what that frog said? He looked at him and said, yes, son. Said, I did. He said, but I'm at an age now, I'd rather have a talking frog. I can relate to that one, too. I'm at that age myself. I love grandkids, and I think anybody that has grandchildren, you understand what I'm talking about. They're really great. I thought one of the things that would be kind of neat is just kind of talk about experiences. And somebody told me the other day, said, you know what experiences are? Those are what you get when you don't get what you want. Well, I went to 9 Super Bowls and didn't get what I wanted 7 times. We only won 2 of them. So I know what it is to, you know, not get what you want. And that's a lot of experiences through my life. Born and raised down in South Georgia, and raised on a, you know, farm, 285-acre farm. And, you know, did an awful lot of, you know, chores growing up. And lifting weights, and never really knew I was lifting weights because we were doing everything, baling hay, cotton, peanuts, corn. You know, I was always lifting something and getting up early in the morning and working till, you know, to dark. And, you know, it was great to play. I played all 3 sports because it was get me away from that farm work. You know, I wanted to play all 3, and I was fortunate that we had, you know, good football teams, good baseball teams, basketball when I was in high school. In fact, my senior year we won the state championship in basketball and baseball, and actually beat the state champions in football. But we lost a game earlier in the sub-region that cost us playoffs, and so we had a possibility of a chance that we could have won 3 championships, and didn't get many offers. You know, as Shelley said, I ended up going to South Carolina. Well, it was real easy to make my decision. I wasn't undecided, because they were the only school that offered me one, and I signed that thing real quick before they changed it. And, I ended up going to South Carolina, and you know, really was a tremendous thrill for me to play at university. I'd been a big Georgia Tech fan, had an older brother that went to Georgia Tech, and I'd watched all their games through Coach Bobby Dodd's career. You know, big Tech fan. They always had a great team. Tennessee was their biggest rivalry, and that was a big game. And I saw every game. It was a home game. You know, through the time my brother was there. So, you know, big Tech fan, and you know, dreamed about playing college football. My brother used to bring players, you know, that were star players there at Georgia Tech, and you know, I used to look at them, and they were just normal people, you know, and you know, I thought it'd be great to one day to be able to play, you know, college football. Never thought it'd be possible. When I was a freshman in high school, believe me, I was the slowest guy on the team. You know, when I ended up being a running back with the Dallas Cowboys, my first couple of years, everybody kept tackling in front of me. You know, ain't no way you could be that slow. Believe me, they learned, you know, to figure it out, and that's the reason I got 2 knee replacements now. You don't be a slow running back and play in the NFL and not get tattooed. So, but anyway, going to South Carolina and playing as a dream come true. I ended up starting as a sophomore at South Carolina. Played for a great man in Coach Marvin Bass. Coach Bass was was like a second dad to me. It's the first time I'd ever been out of the state of Georgia. Ended up going to, to South Carolina there, and he was just great. Great man to play for. He was a father figure. Just treated me and all the players exactly the way you'd like to be treated. And when I got my first head coaching job with the Denver Broncos, the first person I tried to hire, was Coach Bass. And he was coaching at that time in the Canadian Football League. And, most of the time you call a coach in the Canadian League, offer him a job in the NFL, he'd be there, that day or the next day one. But he said, Dan, I promised these people I'd coach up here, and he said, I'm going to keep my word. And, if you got a job opening next year, I'd love to do it. And so I did, and he came with me, and he was with me in Denver, and his wife had a stroke and couldn't go with us when we went to New York. He had went back to South Carolina, and she passed away. And when I went to Atlanta, he was got a call from his son. He said, Mother's gone, and Dad's just, waiting to die. I said, why don't you call him and see if he would come down and, help you out, or, come down and at least visit. And so I called him and offered him a job. He came down, and believe me, he was the first man to work every day. You couldn't beat him. You came at 5:30, he was already there. You come at 5:15, he was already there. So I don't know whether he slept there or what, but he was always there when you came in. And Coach Bass was great, because you really need somebody that will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And, he was that way. He was, very honest. And when I got fired in 2003, Coach Bass was 88 years old, was on my staff. So he was the oldest, man in pro football. And unfortunately, we lost him a couple of years ago, but he was a great influence on my life, and that's who I played for at South Carolina. And we never had a great team while I was there. And in fact, when I went to the Cowboys as a free agent, and that was back when free agent really meant free.